Next on the agenda, review and discuss Collins Central Appraisal District and Dallas Central Appraisal District preliminary 2013-2014 tax roll. As Mr. File's making his way up, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Johnson for the pre-words.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, item E and F, I guess, could be considered to be the mutually joint launching of budget season here. Very traditional briefings that we do about this time of year on key important elements that we will use during our whole summer budget work. And first and foremost of that is certainly beginning the tracking process on behalf of tax values. Some coverage occurred in the Dallas Morning News in the last while here relative to the preliminary values, variety of tables and a variety of information. I really appreciate how Kent kind of takes that, summarizes that down into a meaningful kind of way we can begin to assess where we are at the moment and certainly track it through the summer process. Let me turn over to Kent to both take you through the calendar of what will happen. I'll also show you the magnitude of the dollars of where we're starting from and kind of some forecast, first efforts at doing that. I guess forecast almost sounds too official a word, Kent. I know you would hesitate to do that on some of the kind of estimating we try to do about this time. But with that, this will be the agenda item here now, and it really will be a point of reference that we'll use for the next several months. So, Kent, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dan. Mayor and Council, as Dan mentioned, these are very preliminary numbers here at this point in time, but it does kick off our budget process. With our preliminary values right now, our Dallas County roll makes up approximately 64% of our tax roll, with Collin County making up the other 36%. These values are the values that we receive as of January 1st. So January 1st of 2013 is the valuation date. As we start our review process, Dallas County Appraisal District gives us the numbers that are in their system as of the middle of May. And then throughout the summer leading up to the certification date, July 25, those numbers will decrease with them. Typically that's due to, as properties move through the appraisal review board process and the protest process, we'll see a decline in values. Collin County gives us what they're forecasting that number will be July 25. So what we try to do is we try to take the two methodologies and kind of meld them together to come up with a preliminary estimate at this point in time. In the middle of the first page of your summary here, let me just kind of walk you through some numbers. That chart compares these 2013 preliminary values to the 2012 certified values. So right now our preliminary roll for Collin County is at about $3.9 billion. Our preliminary roll for Dallas County is at $6.9 billion. And so in total, that's just a little under $10.8 billion total roll. And just as a reminder, if you recall, last year was the first year we actually got a little bit above that $10 billion mark in values. So right now, those preliminary numbers in total compared to the certified numbers that we had last year are up 6.67%. And I will show you in a second how we're forecasting that to go down a little bit throughout the summer. But also just want to mention, just for comparison purposes, last year our 2012 preliminary value of $10.1 billion compared to the certified value for 2012 showed a decline over the summer of 0.62%. That's not as much of a decline as we normally see, but if you look at the details there on that bottom chart, Dallas County was actually down throughout the summer, almost 3.5%, but there was an offset in Collin County. It was up quite a bit more than what they forecasted, 4.7%. So when you melded that together through the process last summer, we didn't lose as much as we normally lose. If you'll go to the second page, though, I'll show you here. This is a 5-year history that we use, and the 5-year history is primarily for Dallas County. So right now, this is how we start to project. Dallas County is showing, or in total, we're showing a preliminary value of $10.7, almost $10.8 billion. We're projecting that by the end of the summer, that will go down to just under $10.5 billion. So that would be a decrease overall of 2.5%. Now, that is 4% above our certified roll last year. So at this point in time, we're projecting our values where we'll be July 25, will be up 4% over last year. I think one caveat I might mention, though, is it looks to us like about 1.5 to 2% of that 4% is probably going to be values that are in our TIF zone. So that will go for TIF purposes. Right now, very rough, we're showing that between our 3 TIFs, and it's primarily TIF number 1, there's an increase of about $286 million, probably primarily related to the digital realty property in Summer Brick Row. And then in TIF number 2, there's a $30 million increase that's related to, if you recall, there's that stream property piece that's right there. So an additional $30 million that comes on for TIF number 2. So in all right now, and that number could change, very tentative, if any of that property is protested or anything, but The TIFs are probably showing an increment increase of about $316 million, which would make up, again, roughly about 2% of our overall 4% increase. So basically, at the end of the day, right now, it looks like there's about 2% that would be available for our general government operations, general fund and general debt service fund. On the third page, we just pulled some general numbers here to show you kind of the area roles overall. And on that third page, there's two charts there. Kind of looks like one, but there's two. One is for DCAD, one's for CCAD. DCAD actually gives us a little bit more of a breakdown at this point in the process. So you'll see for Richardson for this year, our residential property is up about 0.52%. Now, I won't read off all the cities, but that looks a little low compared to some of those cities. And primarily, if you recall, as we went through the mortgage crisis kind of at the end of 2007 and into the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009, there were properties, especially residential properties across the Metroplex, that fell. Our properties remained relatively stable through that time. There really weren't a lot of pockets of foreclosures and other things here in the community. So I guess what I'm saying is there's not as much to build back up to probably as there are in some other places. Commercial property, we're showing an increase of 14.82% in the preliminary roll, which is kind of in line with most of those that you see there. And then BPP is up 14.3%. And of course, BPP has to be rendered by all businesses, so they'll still be working through that rendering process as they go through the summer and reviewing those values. The Collin County numbers there in whole, Richardson is 2.81% up with these preliminary rolls, which again is somewhat in line with most of the other cities you see there. So to conclude, basically, we will continue to follow this process throughout the summer as the rolls change, and then look forward to getting those numbers on July 25, which is a Thursday, getting the certified numbers. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions at this point? Great. Thanks for putting this together for us.
Kim does a great job and summarizes some pretty complex subjects like that. So.